Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening for people who are joining from other parts of the world. Thank you for your patience. We are delighted to have you with us today. My name is Hari, and I serve as Program Manager for Banyan Impact Fellowship. I also have with me our 2025 Banyan Impact Fellow alumni, Julian. Julian currently works at International Rescue Committee in Seattle. Welcome, Julian.
Thanks, Hari. Happy to be here.
In a short while, we will hear more about Julian's fellowship experience. The information session will begin with a brief 10-minute presentation covering the fellowship program and the application process. After that, our fellowship alumnus, Julian, will share insights from his fellowship experience. We will wrap the session with an open question and answer. I encourage everyone on the call to drop their questions in the comment section, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. Banyan Impact Fellowship is American India Foundation's oldest program. It started in 2001 and was formerly known as William J. Clinton Fellowship for Service in India. AIF is committed to improving the lives of underprivileged, especially women, children, and youth. The Banyan Impact Fellowship is a binational volunteer service program in the US-India corridor, with the mission to build a lasting bridge between the US and India. The fellows, part of the first cohort, worked on disaster relief, but over the past 25 years, we have had 617 fellows work across 289 partner organizations on various projects closely linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The fellowship is a 10-month in-person volunteer service program in India between the months September and June. Fellows work on projects aligned to UN Sustainable Development Goals. Fellows, along with the host organization, define project scope for the fellowship to serve the communities on ground. The program brings together both Indians and Americans to foster meaningful connections. Through a matching process, shortlisted candidates are matched with grassroots NGO in the development sector to accelerate impact in India. The thematic areas of the projects that the fellows work on have expanded from disaster relief in 2001 to different areas that include education, public health, livelihoods, climate justice and environment protection, and many more. BIF is a fully funded program that covers benefits such as living stipend, visa and travel expenses, health insurance and mental health counseling sessions, language training, professional development grants, conferences and skill building workshops, mentoring programs, and networking and career opportunities. I want to highlight the mentoring programs here. These are offered through our senior fellows who are seasoned social sector professionals, and they give you ongoing mentorship through the 10 months of your fellowship. Networking and career conversations with alumni from the fellowship also happen throughout the fellowship, especially during conferences where you get to meet alumni in person. Our application cycle for the year has opened. Applicants must fulfill the following eligibility criteria. You need to be a US citizen or a permanent resident or an Indian citizen. You need to be between 21 to 35 years of age. You must have completed a bachelor's or an undergraduate degree. You must be willing to learn with host communities, and you should have a commitment to positive and sustainable change and US-India bridge building. I'll give you a quick overview of the fellowship selection process and the structure. The fellowship selection process has two rounds, the application round and the matching round. The application round has two stages. The first stage is a written application stage. So our applications are live now. You can find them in the AIF website. Once you turn in your application, successful applicants are invited for an interview round. Those who successfully complete the interview rounds are taken to the matching round, which is where you will get an opportunity to match with up to 3 host organizations to further explore your placement opportunities within the fellowship. Upon successfully receiving a placement or a match, you will be welcomed to the fellowship and your training begins in India. So, this will be a 10-month in person program in India, starting with the orientation conference in New Delhi. Post which, you will receive ongoing support from program resources, from your senior fellows who will be technical expert mentors, and your host organization supervisor. The fellowship is also an opportunity for you to gain more insights about AIF's work, its program, and the larger development sector. Here's a broad overview of the fellowship timeline itself. The fellowship begins, like I mentioned, with the orientation conference in New Delhi. Post the orientation conference in September, you move to your host locations, which is where you will continue the rest of your fellowship. We convene in January for the midpoint conference. It is a time to pause and reflect on the 5 months gone by and to sort of chalk your journey for the remaining 5 months of the fellowship. Finally, we conclude the fellowship with a public seminar. It's also your graduation ceremony. It happens in June. This is where you will present the accomplishments of your fellowship work. Here's an overview of what the 10 months could look like through Erin's fellowship journey. Erin was a 2022-23 fellow who was placed in EcoRap in Jaipur in Rajasthan. As part of her 10-month fellowship program, Erin developed and helped the community of women in the livelihoods project that she was placed in. Here's the testimonial from Erin. I will hold up the slide for 10 seconds so you could quickly read them. Similar to Erin, 67% of our alumni stay back in the social sector. Erin currently works in EcoRap. Our alumni represent a wide variety of professions and career pathways, including investment partners, healthcare professionals, professors, founders, scientists, so on and so forth. I've shared, 3 profiles for your overview. Monica Doshi, assistant professor at Brown University. So she teaches at the School of Public Health. Christopher Torillo, co-founded MEDA and aspires to reach 1 million youth to make them job ready in the next 5 years in India. Nicholas Steenberg, previously speechwriter to the US Secretary for State. Today, we have the opportunity to interact with our very own alumni, Julian. Julian, welcoming you back. Why don't you get us started by talking a little bit about your fellowship, your placement city, and get us started.
Sure. Thanks for the overview, Hari. Hi, everybody. My name is Julian. I was in the last cohort for the fellowship. I was placed in Jamshedpur, which is in Jharkhand in eastern India. And if you know a little bit of geography, it's like 3.5 hours west of Kolkata by train. And that's where Tata Steel is based, if that means anything to any of you. So I was placed on the Mansi project, which is the Maternal and Newborn Survival Initiative. And essentially what they do is they do a few different things related to public health projects towards mothers and children. So my specific project within Mansi was to work on these things called birth waiting homes. And birth waiting homes are these buildings that are built in rural areas where healthcare is very inaccessible. And so let's picture for a second, there's mothers in a rural village, and the nearest healthcare center is maybe 30 kilometers away. A birth waiting home will be built nearby, maybe 10 kilometers, for some, maybe even like 1 or 2 kilometers. And it essentially increases their healthcare access, and specifically for pregnant mothers, it increases the healthcare that they can receive when giving birth and in the months leading up to giving birth. So throughout my project, there was kind of a logical progression of things that started with researching birth waiting homes. And this isn't a Monty specific thing, so researching them around the world and seeing what works and what doesn't. And then actually going and working with the communities. So I did a social mapping where we got many community health workers together to map the community and figure out what routes to the birth waiting home work and do not, and also just get insight from them about their thoughts on the birth waiting homes. And I followed that with my own focus group with mothers in the communities that we were looking to serve. So we did focus groups with mothers and with community health workers from those villages. And then I, through that, realized that there was an accessibility issue for the birth waiting homes and an awareness issue. Many of the mothers didn't know that the facilities existed, even though they had been there for about a year. And the ones who did know that they existed didn't know that they could use it. So the point of the birth waiting home is, if it's used in a way, they can go early so that by the time they're in labor, they can essentially help with any complications. So if you're coming 20 kilometers and you're already in labor and you're facing complications, it's hard to get healthcare. So many mothers didn't know that they can come early. So because of that, I worked with the community health workers and some mothers, and we created videos that explained the birth waiting homes, and just was able to increase the awareness, because within the scope of the project, working on the awareness issue was way easier than working on things like roads. Like, that's not something that's possible within the project. So that was what I did.
Thank you for sharing that, Julian. It was really helpful to sort of understand the work that you did as part of your 10-month project. Could you talk to us a little bit about the matching process with your NGO or the host organization, and also walk us through how you worked with them initially to scope your project?
Sure. So Hari already explained a good amount of the project. You do the initial application, the interview, and then you get to the matching round, where you apply to a few projects. And I had applied to 5 projects. I got interviews with 3 of them that I had chosen, and then AIF added one other one they thought I could be good for. So I interviewed with 4 different projects, and you interview with whoever would be your supervisor at those projects. And then, so my specific project that I got was actually my second choice, and I came off the wait list for it. So I'm really happy that that worked out. And also, I think it's good to trust the AIF matching process, because I think I would way happier at my second choice, which I got, than I would have been at my first choice. So that was, I trust the process. In terms of scoping the work, so I came into the project, you get a little project brief when you're applying that tells you what the work may look like. And my brief was pretty broad. It said we were going to be working with birth waiting homes and to increase the utilization of them, but no strategies exactly to figure out how. They mentioned focus groups, mentioned interviews, but it wasn't like a guarantee that that's what we're going to be doing. So my boss definitely advised me in a good way to, one, start with research, and then actually talking to the communities, doing needs assessments. And that's the best way to do it. Seeing what people need, having them tell you what you need, observing the things that you see. And then based on that, like, not diving right into a project, kind of doing that first so that your project can be as impactful as possible.
Great. Thank you for that. Could you talk to us a little bit about a highlight from your fellowship? I know that there could be many things to be shared, but in the interest of time, if you could focus on 1 or 2 things that you want to share with us, that'd be great.
Oh, this is so hard. Something I've been thinking about leading up to this. So I'll go within the work. Fieldwork was for sure the highlight. I loved the focus groups, and I loved actually making the videos, getting to work with people and film them, and seeing also just how much fun they had while filming was such a highlight for me. And then in terms of just personal highlights from the fellowship, Holi was a highlight. Spending Holi in Jaipur was a highlight. Diwali in Udaipur was a highlight. People throwing fireworks at each other, like I don't know, just crazy things that we don't see over here. I got to meet the Dalai Lama. That was a highlight. And yeah, also just I'd say the friends in the cohort that I made, we were super tight, and just having them made the experience so much better. So those would be my highlights personally.
Julian, lovely. I've lived in India for most part, and I feel like you've packed in a lot more experiences in the 10 months that you've lived there. So wonderful to hear that. Again, the next question is, you studied in Chicago, Northwestern, and then you are from New York. So could you talk to us a little bit about how was it to sort of relocate to India, live by yourself, and especially in, a semi-rural sort of setup? Could you talk to us a little bit about how was your experience navigating India and living there?
Yeah, I loved it. I wanted something super different. There were for sure challenges that came with it. Being in a two-tier, I would call, city in India, there were enough people that spoke English, but many who did not. And especially within the field work, pretty much no one spoke English. So I was working with community health workers who translated for most of the time. So that was a challenge, but one that if you put in a little effort, and my Hindi was terrible, but if you put in a little effort to learn some basic things and figure out some strategies to communicate with people, it definitely works out. In terms of the living situation, I think it's important to really build a community within wherever you're placed. If you're in a major city, it should be pretty easy. It seemed all my friends in major cities had their communities, whether it's the other fellows or some clubs they joined or something along those lines. For me, I leaned a lot on my coworkers. I became friends with my coworkers. And like I spent holidays with some of my coworkers in their rural villages and stuff like that, and just hanging out on the weekends. And if you're willing to put in the effort to be social and make those connections, your time, regardless of where you are, will be so much better.
Thank you for that. While I continue asking you questions, Julian, a quick announcement for people that are watching us. Please do post in any questions that you have for us that you want us answered. Would be more than happy to answer them. So Julian, coming back to your experience, you spoke a little bit about this in terms of, navigating a place where English was not widely spoken. Could you talk to us a little bit about how did you cope, with a different language and culture?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the language, AIF, and Hari, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's still happening, but AIF gives language classes for 10 weeks during the fellowship. So that definitely helped because I came in with no Hindi experience. So that definitely helped to at least get acquainted with the language. And then from there, it's kind of on you to self-study a little bit and at least try and practice. So I got good enough to do the basic things, to talk to my Rapido drivers in the morning and order at restaurants, and maybe a few more things here and there. Nothing crazy. And between that and Google Translate, you can kind of figure things out as you go. In terms of getting acquainted to the culture, I'm not going to generalize Indian culture, but there are so many aspects of it and different, like you see different cultures all over India. India is so culturally diverse, but there are so many fun, for example, festivals. that you can attend. And like in Jamshedpur, we had many regional festivals that were super fun, and like people dancing in the streets, and I would join and meet people, and it was just a fun way to meet people. And yeah, just keeping an open mind, and the people are so friendly there. Just keep an open mind, take advantage of how nice people are, and just like sit down with people and have meals, and people are so willing to help you when you feel like maybe you're a little lost. And yeah, I would just that would be my general advice.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And could you tell us a little bit about, especially, you know, living in India for 10 months? How did you find your community, living in India?
Yeah. So like I already mentioned, the coworkers were a big community of mine. I Another thing I did was I joined this group. Someone sent me a link to a group chat for some guys who play soccer, and I became friends with them, and we would play soccer like twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. Um, just lean into whatever connections people give you. I had one of the other fellows, Oscar. He had a singular friend who was in my city who became my best friend while I was there. So he connected us right away, and I got to meet his family. I spent holidays with him. I met all his friends. So we lean into any connections, and also I'd recommend if you're comfortable and if you like them enough, become friends with your manager and your coworkers. One of my favorite things that happened towards the end of the fellowship is that my manager kept, or a few times he invited me over for dinner, like once a week, and that was super nice. And I got to spend time with him and his wife and his son, and that was a highlight of mine for sure.
Great. Thank you so much, Julian. I think till we sort of getting questions from the audience, I'm going to sort of line up some commonly asked questions that
Yeah, sure.
applicants generally have. So, could you talk to us a little bit about how you navigated housing and finding housing in India? Because that will definitely be a question in most people's mind.
Yeah, so definitely something that seems stressful at first, but works out for everybody. Um, if you are a fellow, you will find housing within the 2 weeks that they give you to find it. It'll happen one way or another. It always does. So me specifically, my manager connected us to a broker, and the broker showed us a few places, and we chose. Not everyone does this, but this is how I did it. I thought this was a good way to do it, where we got to see at least 3 or 4 options before deciding on a place. You give your budget, and they tell you places. They show you places that they think would fit it. My place was good, depending on where you live. So if you're in a place like Delhi or Mumbai or maybe Ahmedabad, um, your rent will be more expensive. If you're in a place like Jamshedpur, or we had some people in rural areas, your rent will not be expensive. That's just how it goes. So you give your budget and you find a place. Like I was able to get a 2-bedroom apartment to myself for not an expensive price comparatively. There are definitely things I would take into account with where you're living. Know things like the top floor of the apartment gets really hot. I would recommend, if you have to pay a little more for an AC, like I would things I would recommend, especially as once you get past into April, it's going to be quite hot, and I would not recommend having a place that doesn't have AC, because I did that, and yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. And Julian, shifting gears here in terms of planning, travel within India
Mm.
while you are sort of, full time working at the host organization. How did you manage that? And if you could share your experience of, traveling within India and being able to balance that with your work.
Yeah, travel. So the traveling is one of the most fun things you can do in the fellowship. Definitely. I'm very fortunate. I got to travel a lot. And the Indian transportation system, very good in how interconnected it is. So trains go everywhere. Trains are an affordable option. They may take longer, but they're an affordable option. Planes can get you most places that are at least semi big enough. And then buses also. So I did a handful of sleeper buses, many planes, many trains. I used all the forms of transportation. It's, if you're in a major city, very easy to do weekend trips because you just go to your airport. You're there within however many minutes, and then you get on the plane, and it's easy. Our nearest airport was like 3 hours away, so I often had to coordinate it. Maybe leave right after work on a Friday, take an 8 p.m. flight, that kind of thing. Or 8 p.m. bus, whatever. But you make it work. You get some days off. So occasionally you have to use those for travel days. And I would just recommend traveling as much as you can and as much as you can budget. The budget we got from AIF definitely accounts. I think if you're budgeting well, you can fit the AIF stipend into your travel. So I pretty much went cost neutral with the fellowship, which is the goal. So you can definitely do it and just take advantage of how diverse India is landscape wise. I mean, you go to the north, you have the mountains, you go to the south, you have the beautiful beaches, and you go to the northeast and you have the tea plantations. And it's just take advantage, try to go to as many places as you can and really experience the country as much as you can.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sort of, curious to understand your application experience. So for the benefit of people that joined in late, I'll quickly reiterate the selection process. So the selection process consists of two main stages, the application round and the matching round. In the application stage, you will submit written essays and participate in an interview if shortlisted. So, Julian, I know you joined the fellowship right after your undergraduation. So, for other applicants, that are at a similar plane that are looking to apply at the fellowship, what would your advice be in terms of how to position themselves, for the fellowship? Any advice that you have?
Yeah. I mean, I would say kind of trust the process. Before I got the fellowship, I was actually scheduled to do the Peace Corps, and then found out I was a finalist here and had to make the decision, and just the structure and the type of work I could be doing here in India, I very much preferred. So I don't know. It's kind of a trust the process. It's, if you're okay just waiting until the fellowship is status is finalized, then I think it's so worth it. I know a lot of seniors feel like you need something in maybe January or February, so that the rest of your senior year is less stressful. And I totally understand that. I mean, that's ideally what I would have wanted. But that being said, I wouldn't have given up this experience for anything. So I think as long as you're okay with that, then just trust the process.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian. I think I just also emphasize as you sort of, submit your applications, especially in your essays, we definitely look for your motivation in terms of why this fellowship,
Yeah.
why you, which is where we are looking for, some of the skills that you want to highlight, because you would, at the end of the day, be mapped to a host organization where there's clear need and they're looking for skilled emerging leadership talent to come and help them. Why you in terms of your skills, and why now? Like Julian rightly mentioned, why you want to do this fellowship now. I think those would sort of definitely position your application really strong.
Can I chime in a second?
Yeah, go for it, Julian.
Yeah, if some advice I would give also for the application is to, one, obviously tell why you are a good applicant, but also just show how much you care. every single person who was a fellow that I worked with just cared so much for the social sector, cared so much for whatever they were working. A few people like myself had no connection to India before, but you can still care about the issues that are happening. And then once you get there, you're in it. So that would just be my advice. Like, show how passionate you are and connect that to things you've already done. And that should help make you a strong applicant.
Great. Shifting gears, Julian, do you want to tell us a little bit about what do you do now? Where are you? We're curious to sort of learn a little bit about your work now.
Sure. Yeah, the fellowship is. I'm currently working at the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, out in Seattle. So I am an asylum services navigator for asylum seekers who are coming to the U.S. So with the current administration, refugee status isn't really much of a thing anymore. So we see a lot of asylum seekers. And within Washington State, there's a specific state-run program that helps to provide legal, housing, and case management services for asylum seekers. So I'm kind of one of the 8 middlemen who do intakes with asylum seekers, where I interview them, see what their needs are, and then refer them to our partner organizations who will provide those legal, housing, and case management resources. So I've enjoyed it so far. I've been doing it for about a month. And I'd say the fellowship positioned me well to get this role, not because I'm doing anything with India specifically, and I'm technically not even doing anything public health wise, although I mean, kind of in a way, we connect people with medical resources as well. But I think something the IRC values a lot is just your ability to work with people from other cultures and empathize with them, and maybe take a trauma-informed care approach to how you do the work. And these are things that I, for sure, learned during the fellowship and was able to talk about during my interviews. And yeah, my time in India was a main talking point during my interviews. And it's something that I think you'll be able to talk about going forward once you do it.
Great. Thank you so much. I think, in fact, you sort of preempted, the question that I had next for you in terms of how did the fellowship sort of prepare you for your current role or, your long-term aspirations and goals. And it was great to hear that. Is there anything, that you would sort of want to add in terms of your long-term aspirations and how you saw the fellowship 10 months sort of help you glean some insights into reflecting upon that?
Sure. So a lot of people who do the fellowship have career aspirations that are global. And something I have noticed as I went through the job application process post fellowship is that if you want a career in the US that works globally, a lot of organizations want to see that you already have global experience. And this is a premier example of how you can get that global experience. You're working in the social sector in an international context. It's kind of exactly what a lot of companies are looking for. If you want to work at international NGOs or maybe the UN long term or something along those lines, or maybe just the international wing of some corporate company, this is the kind of experience that will look very good and also just give you a lot of skills that you can take to that role in the future.
Great. Thank you. Julian, I do have one final question. This is regarding any challenges that you faced during the fellowship that you would want to share. That'd be great.
Any challenge that I faced during the fellowship? We talked about the language barrier. I mean, I guess I mentioned earlier, like, make sure you definitely think through your housing situation. I think I found my housing situation within like 5 days. We didn't take the full 2 weeks. There was nothing wrong with it at first, but then when monsoon season hit, like, I was on the top floor and the apartment was getting all wet and all these things, I would just take more time to take almost the 2 weeks to find the housing. Things I didn't think about. Like I was just so excited to get into a place. That would be advice. Any problems that come up, talk to your manager. They'll be able to help you in some way or another. Like I got sick once or twice. My manager sent me to doctors, like his personal doctor took care of me, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Julian. I think with that note, I just want to sort of reinforce the support system that we have in the fellowship, which is threefold. One is your program point of contact. So generally, fellows are mapped to a program point of contact in the ratio of 5 fellows to 1. Who's your everyday contact in terms of program logistics. You also have your host organization supervisor that Julian mentioned, who will be the reporting manager with whom you would be working, who would sort of help you understand the contextual nuances of your work on a daily basis. Besides that, you also have a technical expert in the form of a senior fellow. These are fellows who are generally 10 to 15 years tenured in a particular domain, who get mapped to you based on the thematic area that you're working on. Besides this, we also have a community of 617 alumni that you can sort of reach out to have mentorship conversations, ongoing conversations on coaching and career. So just wanted to round out, the support ecosystem that is available in the fellowship as well. So it was wonderful talking to you, Julian, and sort of hearing your perspective, and also great to hear what you're doing today and how the fellowship sort of helped you, build skills to ensure you're ready for the role today. Like always, wonderful catching up with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hari. It was great to think about the fellowship and talk about it. Always love to reflect on my experience there.
Yeah. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Please stay in touch. Our applications are live now. You can visit our website, American India Foundation website, to start your applications. The application deadline is January 30th. If you have any questions, drop me an email. You can find my email on the screen. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon.
If I could also say, anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, please do reach out to Julian as well. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.